remember when things happen like that. So you might say, well, Mary, why revisit that? That's in the past. Because as the poet and philosopher John Santayana said, those who don't remember the past are destined to repeat it. Why revisit it? Because our young people have no idea of the privileges they enjoy that were denied to past generations. They think it's always been that you could eat anywhere, sit anywhere. That's why we need to revisit it. There have been many things said about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. J. Edgar Hoover thought he was a communist and a womanizer. But I choose to remember Dr. King as a Christian, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, and a great civil rights leader. Dr. King professed his love for God at an early age and later became a minister. In reading biographies about him, it was said several times that he prayed before starting many of his missions to help others. He worked tirelessly to advance the civil rights of others through nonviolence. We stand on the shoulders today of Dr. King, Mrs. Rosa Parks, and so many others. Now, I received the SAU Honor Professor Award for 2011, but I am not so naive that I don't realize that there were others, like the late Mrs. Marie Brown, Dr. Kathleen Mallory, Mr. and Mrs. Alvin Brannon, who were just as deserving or more deserving of this award. But I was at the right place at the right time. Today's economic challenges have signaled that despite the progress we've made in creating a more equal nation, we have much work ahead of us. It may be tempting when we look at the man in the Oval Office to think that equality has been achieved for all Americans. We may have made tremendous progress as a nation, but it will still take more than the election of the first African-American president to make equity a reality. I often wonder how our world would have been different if Dr. King had not been killed on that fateful day at the Lorraine Hotel in Memphis, Tennessee. He lived a very short life, but he did more in 1 year than many people do in a lifetime. I think Mr. King would be pleased with some of our progress and very displeased with our lack of progress in other areas. He would be thrilled that African Americans are able to attend schools of our choice and get a quality education, but disappointed that many are dropping out of school and filling jail cells because of illegal activity, especially drug use. He would have been delighted that President Barack Obama became the 47th president, but so displeased at the disrespect shown to him as the first United States president of color. He would not want a big fuss made about his birthday, but would be so glad that the day is being used to give service back to the community and to talk about unity. He would be glad to see the number of African American doctors and lawyers and teachers, but he would be devastated at the amount of violence done by our people to our people, and especially the violence directed at the elderly and our children. He would be glad that blacks own TV stations, that blacks have won Emmys, Grammys, and Oscars, but disappointed that so many young people have brains that are clogged with drugs and the sounds of songs that repeat vulgar statements over and over and dress so disrespectfully. Dr. King would be glad to see that all people 18 years and older have the opportunity to vote, history classes. Because in order to vote when we turn 21, because at that time you had to be 21 to vote, then we need to be able to answer certain questions. Once upon a time, you had to be white, male, and wealthy in order to vote. And for African Americans, after that, there was the test. But that's no longer the case. So I think Dr. King would think it a travesty that all Americans don't exercise the right to vote. We are facing the most serious financial crisis in generations. This recession has been an equal opportunity offender, affecting Americans of all racial and ethnic groups, classes, and ages, and closing off both blue and white-collar job prospects. But we know that some communities have been hit harder than others. Joblessness for young black men between the ages of 16 and 24 is higher than the national averages and has reached proportions not seen since the Great Depression. I don't know what Mr. King would say about our world today, but I believe he would still be fighting for the rights of those who are oppressed. I think he would still believe in nonviolence, and I think he would still preach to judge a man by the content of his character and not the color of his skin. But I think he wants us to take advantage of the doors that have been cracked and push them open for others so that we can truly live out his dream. It has been said that freedom is not free. Along with equal opportunity and equal access comes equal responsibility. We have a responsibility to our next generation. As parents, we have a responsibility to make sure our children show up at school free of abuse and neglect and ready to learn. As teachers, we have to be prepared to give ourselves to each and every student who comes in the classroom, regardless of background,